Sebastian Cross, CEO. The kind of person who didn't make small talk in elevators and didn't need to. He was 32, cold in the way that powerful people often were, and he rarely spoke to anyone below the executive floor. The near touch. They reached for the same folder at the same time. Their hands didn't touch, but the air between them felt tight. Emily handed him the papers and stood, her pulse hammering. Sebastian straightened, his expression unreadable. He thanked her without warmth and turned to leave. That should have been the end of it. The boundary question, forcing the intimacy issue. Emily asked what playing the role meant. Sebastian said it meant moving into his estate, attending family dinners, posing for photographs, convincing his uncle and the board that they were a real couple. Emily asked the question that had been sitting in her throat since the moment he started talking. So, we're sharing a bed? The answer, cold pragmatism. Sebastian's expression didn't change. Only when necessary. Only when we need to convince someone who matters. The cliffhanger, her choice. Emily told him she needed 24 hours to think about it. Now back to the story in full. The contract was signed 3 days later in a lawyer's office downtown. Everything was there. The money, the timeline, the rules. No emotional attachment. No physical relationship unless required for appearances. Termination clause after 12 months. Emily signed her name at the bottom and watched Sebastian do the same. He shook her hand. It felt like sealing a business deal, which she supposed it was. That night, she held her son while he slept, his breathing finally steady after she picked up his new medication. The prescription that had cost nothing. The first thing Sebastian's money had bought. She kissed his forehead and told herself she'd made the right choice. She had to believe that. Because there was no going back now. Emily moved in on a Saturday. The estate was cold and immaculate, the kind of place that looked like it had been staged for a magazine shoot. Sebastian showed her to a guest suite at the far end of the West Wing. He told her the rules. No crossing boundaries. No personal questions. No expectations beyond what was written in the contract. Emily set her bag down and looked around the room. It was bigger than her entire apartment. She felt like an intruder. Sebastian lingered in the doorway. He said if she needed anything, the staff would help. Then he left. Emily sat on the edge of the bed and realized she'd just moved into a palace with a man who looked at her like an acquisition. The tension was immediate. And it had nowhere to go. Their first public appearance was a charity gala at the Grand Meridian Hotel. Emily stood in front of the mirror while a stylist pinned her hair into an elegant twist. The dress was black, sleek, and cost more than 3 months of her old rent. She barely recognized herself. Sebastian appeared in the doorway wearing a tuxedo that looked like it had been tailored to his body by someone who worshipped him. He said she looked perfect. It didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded like confirmation. At the gala, he placed his hand on the small of her back and guided her through the crowd. Photographers snapped pictures. Strangers smiled and congratulated them. Emily smiled back and felt like a fraud. Then Sebastian leaned close and whispered that she was doing well. For a moment, she almost believed him. Julian Vane was waiting by the bar when they arrived. He was tall, silver-haired, and watched them like a hawk circling prey. Sebastian's jaw tightened. Julian walked over, champagne in hand, and introduced himself to Emily with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He said he hadn't known Sebastian was seeing anyone. Sebastian said they'd kept it quiet. Julian asked how they met. Emily said at the office. Julian raised an eyebrow and said how romantic. Then he turned to Sebastian and said he'd be watching closely. It sounded like a threat. After he walked away, Emily asked who he was. Sebastian said he was the man who wanted to destroy him. And now Julian knew exactly where to start looking. If you've made it this far, you're part of something most people will never see. This story only continues because you're here. Subscribe and let me know you're still with me. I need to know someone's listening. The power went out on a Tuesday night. A storm rolled through the city, knocking out electricity across 2 neighborhoods. The estate went dark just after 9. Sebastian found Emily in the living room, her phone glowing in her hand. He sat on the opposite end of the couch, and for a while, neither of them spoke. Then he asked why she'd really agreed to this. Emily said he already knew why. He said he knew what the contract said. He wanted to know what she'd been thinking when she signed it. Emily took a breath and told him about her son's father. How he'd left the moment things got hard. How she'd been alone ever since. Sebastian listened. Then he told her about growing up in this house. About being raised by nannies while his father built an empire. About the loneliness of having everything except the one thing that mattered. When the lights came back on 2 hours later, they both blinked against the brightness. Something between them had shifted. Neither of them acknowledged it. But they both felt it. Emily mentioned over breakfast that she was taking her son to the park. Sebastian surprised her by asking if he could come. He said he wanted to see what her life looked like outside the estate. Emily hesitated, then said yes. She was pushing her son on the swings when Sebastian arrived. He was wearing jeans and a sweater, no tie, his hair less severe. Her son noticed him first and asked who the man was. Emily said he was a friend. Sebastian walked over and crouched down to the boy's level. He asked what his favorite dinosaur was. Her son's eyes lit up. They spent the afternoon building sandcastles and chasing pigeons. Sebastian laughed, actually laughed, when her son dumped sand on his shoes. On the walk back, Emily's son slipped his hand into Sebastian's. Sebastian looked down at the small hand in his, and something in his expression cracked. Emily saw it. The loneliness he talked about in the dark. For the first time, she wondered if he was as trapped as she was. Julian called Emily 2 weeks later. He said he wanted to meet, just the two of them. Emily agreed, even though every instinct told her it was a mistake. They met at a cafe near her old apartment. Julian was already there, coffee waiting. He said he knew about the contract. He knew about the debt. He knew Sebastian had bought her. Julian leaned forward and said he didn't blame her for taking the deal. But he also knew this wasn't going to end well. When Sebastian fell, Emily was going to fall with him. Julian said he was offering her a way out. If Emily walked away now, he'd make sure the contract stayed buried. She could keep the money Sebastian had already given her and move on. All she had to do was disappear. Julian said it was the smart play. Emily asked what he got out of it. Julian smiled. He said justice. Emily left without answering, but Julian's words followed her home. The emergency board meeting was called for Thursday morning. Julian had found something, or he thought he had. Either way, he was ready to make his move. Emily sat beside Sebastian at the conference table, facing Julian and the rest of the board. Julian laid out the evidence piece by piece. The contract, the financial transfers, the timeline of when Emily's debts had been paid. He said Sebastian had hired Emily to play the role of his wife so he could satisfy the terms of the will. He said it was fraud. The room went silent. All eyes turned to Sebastian. But before he could speak, Emily stood. She said Julian was right. She had entered into a contract with Sebastian. She had taken his money. All of that was true. Then she said the problem wasn't that Sebastian had hired her. The problem was that his father had written a will that treated marriage like a business qualification. She said it was archaic and cruel. And she said Sebastian had spent the last year running Cross Industries better than anyone in that room ever could. She asked if any of that would have been possible if Julian had been in charge. The board exchanged glances. Emily sat down, her hands shaking. Sebastian looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. The board ruled in Sebastian's favor. Julian was removed for corporate espionage after Emily presented evidence of his surveillance. But the contract had to be dissolved within 30 days. Emily packed her things on a Saturday. Sebastian wasn't there when she started. He appeared in the doorway of her suite just as she zipped her last bag. He said she didn't have to leave. Emily said the contract was over. Sebastian said he wasn't talking about the contract. He asked if she wanted to stay. Not as his employee. Not as part of a deal. Just as herself. Emily looked at him and saw the man who had crouched down to talk to her son about dinosaurs. The man who had sat with her in the dark and told her the truth. She asked what that would look like. Sebastian said he didn't know. But he wanted to find out. Emily smiled. She said she did too. That night, Sebastian asked the question that had started all of this. He said, "So, are we sharing a bed?" Emily laughed. She said, "Maybe. But not tonight." Sebastian said that was fair. And for the first time since they'd met, neither of them was pretending. They were just two people trying to figure out what came next. And that, Emily thought, was a pretty good place to start. You've been here through every twist, every risk, every moment they almost lost each other. Most people will scroll past this story and never know what they missed. But you stayed. If this story meant something to you, subscribe and let me know you're still here. I'm writing this for you, and I need to know someone's listening.